Imagine Me and You is a movie like you've never seen before. Unlike stories filled with internal conflicts, mishaps, and tragic endings, this masterpiece proves that love can win. It's a refreshing take on romance, showing that happiness doesn't have to come with heartbreak. Some stories can end the way they should, beautifully. Without further ado, let's dive into this masterpiece. The wedding day is here, and chaos is already in the air. Rachel's dad, donned in a questionable suit, stands there proudly, except Rachel's mom is not having it. "Tell your father he can't wear that suit," she sighs. But Rachel? She's too busy looking absolutely stunning in her wedding dress. "Holy wow," her best friend gasps. "A little meringue-like? Sure, but she owns it." Meanwhile, across town, Luce is running late, again. "Balls," she mutters, grabbing her gear. She's got a wedding gig today, and yeah, she always manages to charm someone at these things. Her friend teases her about it, but Luce laughs it off. She's got a life, not a love life, and that suits her just fine. At the venue, Hector, better known as Heck, is trying to keep it together. No nerves, none at all. He keeps saying it like a mantra, hoping it'll be true. When Luce finally arrives, Heck and his best man Coop take a look at the flowers. "Fabulous," Heck says. Coop, ever the ladies' man, shrugs. "I wouldn't know a nice flower from a poke in the eye." Classic Coop. The wedding is about to start, and there's a moment. You know, that moment where the groom wonders if he should just yell, "Stop the car! This is a horrible mistake." But Heck doesn't. Instead, he fidgets as Rachel walks down the aisle. She looks perfect, glowing, and everyone is watching, except Rachel's little cousin, H, who is deeply invested in a random philosophical debate about unstoppable forces and immovable objects. But here's where things get spicy. As Rachel walks down the aisle, bouquet in hand, she locks eyes with someone in the crowd. Not Heck, nope, it's Luce, the florist who arranged the wedding flowers. And let's just say, the chemistry hits like a freight train. Rachel's smile freezes. Luce gives her this look, half smirk, half, oh shit, and boom. You know that moment in rom-coms where time slows down? Yeah, that happens here. The rest of the ceremony goes smoothly, vows are exchanged, and boom, they're married, just like that. The reception kicks off with dancing, drinking, and, well, minor disasters. Rachel, in all her bridal glory, loses her wedding ring in a giant punch bowl. Luce, ever the problem solver, doesn't hesitate. "Cover me," she says before dunking her entire arm into the questionable pink liquid. And just like that, she retrieves the ring, handing it back to Rachel with a triumphant grin. A moment passes between them, just a second too long, but neither of them acknowledges it. Meanwhile, Coop is doing what Coop does best, flirting, drinking, and making inappropriate jokes. "If I know Heck, the only thing virgin around here is the olive oil," he smirks into the mic. The best man's speech is exactly what you'd expect, full of stories that should probably not be told in front of family. But it's Coop, and no one can really stop him. Then comes the moment Heck has been dreading, his own speech. He hesitates, fumbles, then finally Rachel talks in his place. "I love Rachel," she says, and for a brief, shining moment, everything is exactly as it should be. Rachel's wedding speech is all warmth and sweetness. She talks about knowing Heck forever, calling him her best friend, and painting the perfect love story. It's the kind of speech that makes people swoon, or at least politely clap. Everyone wishes the newlyweds luck, and the room is filled with that cozy wedding glow. But just as things settle, we cut to Luce, frantically flower hunting like her love life depends on it. Because, well, it kind of does. Luce is on a mission. She needs the flower, the one that screams, "I totally messed up, but please forgive me." A red rose? Nope, too cliche, too predictable. But then Rachel arrives at Luce's shop and there's an instant shift in the energy. Their conversation starts off light, but there's this undeniable undertone, like something unspoken is floating between them. When Rachel asks Luce what her favourite flower is, the answer isn't roses or daisies, it's lilies. The moment feels oddly intimate, and then, out of nowhere, Rachel invites Luce to dinner with her and Heck. And Luce says yes. Of course, she says yes. Then in the next scene, Heck and Rachel are deep in an auction war over a leather sofa. Heck is trying to strategize, but Rachel is lost in thought, musing about how sometimes you just click with a person. You meet them, and even though it makes no sense, you know they're going to be in your life. Heck, blissfully unaware of the subtext, loses the sofa. But in a bold move, he breaks their budget and she buys it anyway. Back at home, Rachel's mom, Ella, is, well, being Ella. She's drinking, half-dressed at 5 in the evening and delivering some hilariously tragic one-liners about love, old age, and how depressing tea dances are. Classic. Cut to dinner time. Luce shows up looking effortlessly cool, and Rachel is just a little too excited to see her. She even brought flowers, which Rachel gushes over. Heck, being the great guy that he is just happy to have guests. Then there's Coop, who, if we're being honest, is probably not the ideal match for Luce, despite Heck's best matchmaking efforts. As dinner unfolds, Heck and Luce are having one of those casual, everything and nothing conversations. You know the type, where 1 minute you're talking about work, and the next your friend is dropping a casual bombshell about their love life. Luce asks Heck about his job, life, and the usual small talk. Then Heck flips it back on her. Married? Ever been married? Gonna be married? And Luce, cool as ever, just shakes her head. Nope, not yet. Maybe now that the laws have changed. Heck's face does that confused puppy thing like, how do you mean? And Luce, without missing a beat, drops it. Well, I'm gay. And Heck, pure gold. Just a nod and a casual, lovely, well done. Like she just told him she ran a 10K for charity. But before anyone can let that settle, boom, enter Cooper. Now, if you don't know Cooper by now, you will soon. He's that one friend who's both the life of the party and the reason for most of your regrets. He walks in, takes one look at the food, and immediately declares it absolutely revolting. But who cares about that when he's got more important things to discuss? And by important, I mean, of course, sex. He's been waiting 3 weeks to ask Heck the big question. Does sex actually get better after marriage? Heck tries to dodge the question, but Cooper? Oh, he's relentless. He swears that every married person he's ever hooked up with, yes, you heard that right, tells him it's amazing. And Rachel? She just tosses out the perfect comeback. Get married and find out yourself. And this kicks off one of those deep, drunken, half-serious, half-philosophical debates about love. Rachel thinks love is like an old sweater. Warm, comfortable, something you just grow into over time. But Luce, she's got a different take. She believes you know the second you meet someone. Like eyes meet, world shifts, boom, destiny. It's a big moment. Everyone in the room kind of lets it sink in. Even Cooper, the ultimate skeptic, is like, actually, I'm with her. But let's not get too sentimental, because soon enough it's raining, and Rachel and Luce find themselves outside on the balcony. Heck's afraid of heights, so he stays away. But Luce, she's up there, leaning against the railing, soaking in the rain. Rachel joins her. There's this quiet, loaded moment, like neither of them wants to say what they're actually thinking. Rachel offers Luce her jacket. Luce refuses. Rachel insists. Luce refuses again. And then bam! Luce is suddenly shivering and Rachel just smirks like, told you so. It's a small thing, but you feel the shift. The air between them, it's charged. Meanwhile, Cooper is downstairs trying to convince everyone to play strip poker because, well, of course he is. Luce eventually says goodnight and heads out, and Coop, ever the opportunist, offers her a ride home. And here's where things get interesting. Sitting in the car, Coop does what Coop does best, talks about sex. But Luce, she's got something on her mind, something big, and finally, she spills. Ever met someone and just known? But there's a problem. They're already with someone else. Cooper's immediate answer? Yeah, you shag them. Typical. But Luce isn't that person. She can't just do that to someone. She believes in boundaries, in not breaking hearts. So she makes up her mind. She's going to walk away. And Coop? Well, he tries his best to get her mind off it, suggests they head back to his place, tries to remind her that he's so good in bed. But Luce, she's not even remotely interested. Now, fast forward to the next day. Heck and Rachel are out shopping when, who do they run into? Luce. And not just Luce, but her friend Edie. And Heck, bless his clueless heart, immediately assumes Edie is Luce's girlfriend. But surprise, she's not. Turns out Luce isn't taken. And suddenly, Luce has no excuses, no safety net. Because if Rachel was single, that'd be one thing, but she's not. And now, Luce has to face the truth. And that changes everything. Rachel and Heck were out shopping when they run into Luce and her friend Beth at the market. The encounter is casual, but there's an undercurrent of something unspoken between Rachel and Luce. As they chat, Beth mentions she's single, prompting a humorous but slightly awkward conversation about finding her a man. Meanwhile, Heck, ever the good-natured husband, remains oblivious to Rachel's shifting emotions. As the conversation moves along, Luce helps Rachel pick out some flowers. The moment is simple, Yet there's something electric about their interaction, an invisible thread pulling them together. Rachel finds herself drawn in by Luce's warmth and easy humor, but she quickly brushes it off, pushing away the unfamiliar feelings bubbling inside her. The group eventually parts ways, but Rachel is left with lingering thoughts she can't quite put into words. Later that evening, Rachel and Heck are at home, trying to unwind. Heck, sensing a distance between them, suggests watching a movie together. However, as he flips through their selections, he finds an unexpected DVD in the pile, one Rachel clearly did not intend to bring home. The awkwardness escalates when Heck realizes it's an adult film, leading to an amusing yet telling moment between them. While Heck is amused, Rachel is flustered, struggling to explain the mix-up. She insists on returning it, but Heck, ever the jokester, suggests they watch it anyway, hinting at their recent lack of intimacy. The night continues with Heck trying to spark some romance, but Rachel remains distant. She reassures him that it's not his fault, yet she can't bring herself to say what's really on her mind. There's an emotional weight pressing down on her, but she doesn't have the courage to confront it. Not yet. Meanwhile, Heck has a conversation with Rachel's father, Ned. He attempts to seek advice about marriage, subtly hinting at the struggles he's facing with Rachel. However, the conversation quickly turns awkward when Ned, in his blunt and comedic fashion, reminds Heck that discussing Rachel's intimacy with him is the last thing he wants to hear. Though meant as a joke, the comment emphasizes the growing emotional chasm between Rachel and Heck, one that neither of them fully understands yet. At the same time, Rachel's mother playfully pressures her about having children, adding another layer to Rachel's inner turmoil. The conversation, though lighthearted on the surface, highlights Rachel's deep-seated uncertainties about her marriage and future. As the weekend rolls on, Rachel and her best friend Cooper meet up. Cooper, ever the flirt, attempts to make a move on Luce, but she shuts him down in the most direct way possible. When he jokingly asks if she'd ever be interested, Luce's response is firm yet kind. You and me, it's not going to happen. Cooper, always one to take rejection in stride, shrugs it off with a chuckle, but Rachel takes note of Luce's words in a way she doesn't quite understand yet. The moment at Henrietta's school presentation further deepens Rachel's inner conflict. As she listens to the heartfelt speech about space, stars, and the unknown, she finds herself drawn to Luce once again. Their eyes meet, and for the first time, Rachel begins to acknowledge what she's been feeling all along. It's terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Luce, sensing the tension, makes an excuse to leave, abruptly breaking the moment. Later, Rachel comes across a newspaper article about an elderly couple celebrating their 42nd wedding anniversary. The article recounts how they eloped the day they met, taking a leap of faith despite the uncertainty. The professor's words in the article resonate deeply with her. You don't know. You can never be sure, but you take the plunge anyway. Rachel rereads the line, lost in thought, as something inside her begins to shift. That night, as she and Heck lie in bed, Rachel asks a question that lingers in the air like an unspoken truth. Do you believe in love at first sight? Heck, without hesitation, laughs it off, as do their friends. But Rachel remains silent, realizing that for the first time in her life, she just might. Rachel and Heck are going back home and reminiscing about their past. The air is crisp, the scent of damp earth and grass surrounding them. Heck playfully teases Rachel about an intimate moment they once shared, joking about how he had taken her against a tree rather than in the bushes. Rachel laughs, but there's something in her expression, something distant, unsettled. Out of nowhere, she suddenly grabs his hand and suggests they do it again, right then and there. Heck is caught off guard, chuckling nervously, assuming she's joking. But Rachel isn't laughing. She's serious. There's a desperation in her voice, a need to prove something to herself, to him, to the world. Rach, no, Heck says softly, trying to understand what's going on. But Rachel is already moving away, disappearing into the darkness of the trees. Heck calls after her, his voice filled with confusion. Rach! Rachel! He follows, pushing through the underbrush, his heart pounding. He finds her standing alone in a clearing, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. The weight of everything, their marriage, their future, hangs heavily between them. I don't understand why we have to do this anymore, she finally says, her voice barely above a whisper. Heck watches her carefully. He can feel the shift between them, the invisible wall that's been growing taller day by day. Rach, "What's going on?" he asks, stepping closer. She exhales sharply, as if trying to push out all the tangled emotions choking her. "We have a flat, Heck. A good one. We have everything we need, right? So why does it feel like something's missing?" Heck shakes his head, struggling to grasp what she's trying to say. "We're married. We're supposed to have stability. That's what we wanted, wasn't it?" Rachel nods slowly, but there's uncertainty in her eyes. "Yeah, I thought it was." A silence stretches between them, filled only by the distant rustling of the wind in the trees. Heck doesn't know what to say. He loves Rachel, but for the first time he wonders if love is enough. Rachel finally looks at him, her expression softening. I don't want to keep pretending." Heck swallows hard. He doesn't fully understand what she's saying, but he knows this moment is important. He knows that whatever Rachel is feeling, whatever truth she's grappling with, it's bigger than either of them. And for the first time, he wonders if their love story is about to change forever. While in those bushes, they stumbled upon another couple in the bushes, clearly having a private moment. Embarrassed, everyone apologized quickly and moved on. But Rachel felt even more confused. Here she was, with her husband, but deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Later, Rachel went to see Luce. She needed to talk to get everything off her chest. She told Luce that she felt something she wasn't supposed to feel. She was married. She had a kind and loving husband. This shouldn't be happening. But no matter how much she tried to convince herself, the truth was clear. She had fallen for Luce. Luce tried to make it easy for her. She gave Rachel an out, telling her to just say the word and she would walk away forever. But Rachel couldn't do it. She wanted Luce. And at that moment, nothing else mattered. Meanwhile, Heck was at work, making deals and trying to focus on business. But deep inside, he felt something was wrong. He sensed that Rachel was different, distant. He wanted to fix it. So he went to Luce's flower shop, hoping that flowers would help bring Rachel back to him. He tried to talk to Luce about Rachel, about what might be wrong. But Luce, knowing the truth, could only offer him flowers. Heck bought lilies, Rachel's favorite, hoping they would bring a smile to her face. But the truth could not stay hidden forever. There Rachel heard Heck talking, blaming himself, thinking he had done something wrong. She realized she had to make a choice. She couldn't keep pretending. Rachel ran to Luce, desperate, scared. She begged her to tell her what to do, but the answer was already there. She wanted Luce. She couldn't fight it anymore. Back at work, Heck tried to go on as usual, making big deals and joking with his co-workers, but the weight of everything was too much. It all felt meaningless. Finally, he had enough. He walked away, leaving behind his job, his lies, and everything that didn't feel real anymore. Luce, heartbroken, went to her mother, looking for comfort. She told her about Rachel, about how she loved someone she couldn't have. Her mother listened, wise and gentle, and told her something important. Love is what matters most. Hearts break, but they heal. Life goes on, and love is always worth it. As the night ended, Heck came home, drunk but clear-headed. He had finally seen the truth. Rachel was not his, not really. And Rachel, standing there, knew what she had to do. Love had changed everything, and there was no turning back. Rachel stood in front of Heck, her heart pounding. She had to tell him the truth. It wasn't fair to keep it from him any longer. She took a deep breath and told him everything, about how she had fallen in love with someone else. She didn't mean for it to happen. She wasn't looking for it, but it happened, and it changed everything. Heck listened, his face still, but Rachel could see the pain in his eyes. He was her best friend, and she never wanted to hurt him, but she had. As she spoke, Heck acted like sleeping, and she told everything. He stayed that quiet for a moment, and it was the best thing he could do at that moment. Heck realized he couldn't do this anymore. He had tried. He had thought maybe they could pretend everything was fine, but he realized now that it wasn't. He loved Rachel, but he wanted her to be happy. And if she had found happiness with someone else, he couldn't stand in her way. Rachel felt her heart break. She never wanted to hurt Heck. He had been nothing but kind to her, but she also knew he was right. Love wasn't something that could be forced. It had to be real. And even though she cared for Heck, she had fallen in love with Luce. And love, real love, didn't just disappear. Cooper, Heck's best friend, had figured it out. He stormed to the nursery, furious. He couldn't believe Rachel had done this to Heck. He accused her of breaking his friend's heart, of betraying him. Rachel felt terrible, but she knew there was nothing she could say to change what had happened. Cooper left, shaking his head in anger. Rachel's parents soon found out. At first, her mother was confused. She asked who Rachel had fallen for. When Rachel said Luce's name, her mother's eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. Her father, however, remained calm. He told Rachel that when he first met her mother, he had known she was the one. And if Rachel had found that kind of love with Luce, then she had to follow her heart. Rachel realized she had to find Luce. She had to tell her how she felt. She couldn't let her leave without knowing, but Luce was already on her way to the airport. Rachel had no time to waste. She rushed outside and saw her dad's car. She asked if she could borrow it, but her dad insisted on driving her. Her mum, always wanting to be involved, came along too. They sped through the streets, trying to get to Luce before she left. Rachel's little sister sat beside her, full of questions. She wanted to know why everyone was in such a hurry. She asked about Luce. Rachel just smiled and told her she was going to find someone very special. As they drove, Rachel's mom still had concerns. She wanted to know if Rachel was sure. It had all happened so fast. But Rachel didn't need time to know. The moment she met Luce, she had felt something she had never felt before. It was love. Real love. Meanwhile, Heck sat with H, Rachel's little sister. He was sad, but H tried to cheer him up. She gave him sweets and told him something her teacher always said: "No problem is too big if you have a big enough bag." Heck wasn't sure what that meant, but it made him smile. He realized that even though his heart was broken now, he would be okay. He had to be. Rachel's dad drove as fast as he could, but the streets were crowded. Rachel grew more anxious with every second. What if she was too late? What if Luce had already left? Finally, they reached Luce's shop. Rachel jumped out of the car and ran inside, but Luce wasn't there. Instead, her mother stood behind the counter. She looked at Rachel with surprise. She knew who she was. She knew Rachel was the girl Luce had fallen for. Rachel's heart pounded. "Where is she?" she asked. The woman hesitated, then pointed outside. Rachel turned and saw a taxi driving away. Without thinking, she ran after it. She didn't care how silly she looked. She couldn't let Luce leave. She had to tell her how she felt. As she ran, the world seemed to slow down. She thought about everything that had happened, meeting Luce at her wedding, feeling something she couldn't explain, trying to ignore it, trying to stay with Heck even when her heart was pulling her in another direction. But she couldn't fight it anymore. She had to follow her heart. She ran as fast as she could, calling out Luce's name. The taxi kept going, but Rachel didn't stop. She couldn't stop because sometimes, when you love someone, you have to run after them. Even if it means looking ridiculous, even if it means risking everything, because love is worth it. Rachel had never felt her heart beat so fast. She was running, searching, hoping, because she couldn't let Luce go, not like this. But Luce was already on her way, ready to leave everything behind. Rachel had to stop her before it was too late. She had tried calling Luce first, her hands shaking as she held the phone to her ear. But Luce's voice was distant, cold, not the warm and familiar sound Rachel had come to love. Luce told her there was nothing left to say, that it was over. And then, just like that, she hung up. Rachel's heart dropped. No, it couldn't end this way. She had already lost Heck, had broken his heart, had walked away from everything she thought she knew. But she couldn't walk away from Luce. Not when her heart was telling her to run toward her. Rachel was determined now. She ran through the streets, searching, ignoring the way people stared. She had heard something. A song, a familiar tune in the distance. It was the same song from the flower shop, the one that played when she first realized what she truly felt for Luce. It was a sign, wasn't it? Her old friend was confused, but followed her anyway. "What are you doing?" he asked. But Rachel didn't stop. She was certain. "Where?" he asked again, but she was already moving. The car was in the traffic, but she didn't care about the car. Forget the car. She had something more important to chase. Then she saw the blockage ahead. People were moving. Buses and taxis were honking, and everything felt like a halt. Luce was somewhere in this crowd, slipping away. "Luce!" Rachel screamed as loud as she could, but no one turned around. She climbed onto the car roof to see better. "Luce!" She tried again, but the noise of the cars swallowed her voice. Her heart pounded. What if she was already gone? Rachel wasn't giving up. Not now. She climbed onto a higher car, took a deep breath, and shouted at the top of her lungs, "You're a wanker, number 9. Heads turned. People stared. Some laughed. Some whispered. But Rachel didn't care. Because finally Finally, Luce listened. For a moment, neither of them moved. They just looked at each other across the rush. Rachel could see the conflict in Luce's eyes, the pain, the uncertainty. But Rachel wasn't uncertain. She knew what she wanted now. She could do this. She had to do this. Luce took a deep breath, then started running toward her. Rachel's heart soared. Then, before either of them could say anything, Rachel pulled her into a tight hug. They stood there, in the middle of the chaos, holding on to each other like the world was standing still. They didn't need words. Rachel had found her, and she wasn't letting go. Sometime later, things had changed. Heck was moving on with his life too. He had boarded a plane, off to somewhere new. He sat next to a woman who smiled at him kindly. "What are you writing?" she asked curiously, glancing at the notebook in his lap. Heck smiled, looking down at the empty page. "Notes for a book," he said casually. She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, you're writing a book?" He nodded. "Yeah." She grinned. "That's great, because I can read." He chuckled softly. It had been a long time since he had laughed like that. Maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. The plane took off, flying towards something new, and Heck, for the first time in a long while, felt like he was ready for whatever came next. And there you have it. Imagine Me and You isn't just a love story. It's a beautiful reminder that true love can come when you least expect it. It proves that following your heart, no matter how complicated, can lead to real happiness. A rare film with a happy ending, it shows that love, when true, is worth the risk. What do you think? Should love always win, no matter the circumstances? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more amazing stories. See you again here on Sapphic Nook.